Are you tired of spending your time and money chasing strategy after strategy only to discover what worked 10, 5, or even 2 years ago is not working now? Things shift fast in the online space, and if you're not keeping up, you're getting left behind. It's time for something different. Welcome to the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast, where every single episode will be jam-packed with proven, profitable strategies, behind-the-scenes secrets, and what's working now resources from industry experts and global influencers to help you scale your business, shorten your learning curve, and stand out in a crowded, noisy marketplace. And now, your host, award-winning marketing and media strategist, and international speaker, Patty Farmer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Marketing, Media, Money Podcast. I'm your host, Patty Farmer, and I'm looking forward to sharing today's industry expert with you. And today we are going to have a conversation about something that pretty much everybody is talking about right now. So today what we're going to be talking about is how to create successful virtual events. But we are going to go deep, and we're going to be discussing various platforms, how to create, market, and monetize both virtual meetings and events such as webinars, meetings, support groups, benefits, fundraisers, business, and social events. So I have to tell you, you're going to want to make sure you have your pen and paper handy, because believe me, we're going to have some writer-downers with you today. So let me tell you a little bit about our guest. So Teresa Wright Johnson is the owner of TWJME Enterprises and the founder of Mom Biz Boss. She's a social entrepreneur who speaks and trains on topics such as parenting, mental health, and small business. Teresa shows others how to take their lived experience and monetize their experience, or help others with their experience. Moreover, Teresa is a mom, multiple operational manager, a best-selling author, and an award-winning business leader. And she's going to share her brilliance with us today. So thank you so much, Teresa, for being here with me.
Thank you so much for having me, Patty.
I'm really excited. So let's just jump right in. And you, like most moms and other business and thought leaders, we wear a lot of hats. For me, I like to say I wear a lot of shoes. But with that said, we do a lot of things, and that whole balancing act of the things that we need to do. But for you, I have to tell you, I'm loving what you're balancing, because really, parenting, mental health, and small business, those are not just three different hats. Those are pretty much almost three different things. And I love that you do it. And what I love is that no matter what your business is, obviously, no matter what you do, because you pretty much got all those things covered, we're going to talk today about how really switching, pivoting, whatever the word people want to use, to virtual, how important it is to do it now. So thank you for being here with us today. And I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm excited as well. And I think pivoting is the word, moving in different directions is the word. And it is so important right now, because we're doing everything, especially whether you're a thought leader, as you say, or a parent, everything's virtual right now. And so if I'm in business, or if I'm speaking, or if I want to host an event, if I want to do fundraising, I have to figure out, how do I get myself in those virtual streets? Because I'm not on those main stages as much anymore. So how do you get on those virtual stages? So I'm excited to have this discussion today.
I am too. I think one of the things that is so important right now is really thinking about really not just being virtual, but the etiquette of being virtual. Because, I think, I don't know about you, but I've been on a lot of Zoom meetings where, let's just say, maybe everybody wasn't really showing up at their best, right? And I think that it is really important now, because as you say, we're not speaking on all the stages. For me, I'm used to traveling all over the world speaking. And while I have to say at first, it kind of was a little bit of a pivot for me, I'm kind of enjoying the ability to be able to speak virtually. I think for me, one of the things that I love, which kind of goes to etiquette as well, which is, I believe that when you're a speaker and you are at an event in person, you're not just showing up and speaking for your 45 minutes or an hour, and then you get to go to your hotel room and, carry on with your business. It's like being the cheerleader and how you represent the school. When you are a speaker, you are representing the host and that event. So if you go to a 3-day event, you're literally, for me, that means I'm sitting in the front row and I'm representing for that whole event. I'm also networking and doing all the other things too, but I show up to support the other speakers and that host. So really, for me, learning how to pivot, and maybe now when we're doing it virtually, one of the pros for me is the ability to be able to serve. And really, when you're only talking for 45 minutes or an hour, when you're done, you're done. Follow up is a little bit differently, right? And I think we could talk a little bit about how when you are speaking at a virtual event, really honestly, the follow-up has to be differently because you haven't had those several days and lunches and breakfasts and sitting next to them and chatting in the bathroom and all that stuff, right? You know, you have to be able to do follow-up, but wouldn't you say there are definitely some pros and cons right now to pivoting to a virtual?
Yes, I definitely would say, especially as speakers and being very personable and having that energy and that connection, you might not get that virtually. So you, one, have to show up for a virtual event almost a little bit brighter, a little bit bolder, and a little bit more bodacious than you did in person, because you're not going to be able to make that longer impression, as you said, Patty. I'm not going to be able to go and sit and talk to someone at lunch. I'm not going to be able to talk in between the breaks. You can't come to my vendor's table. So how do I still make an impression and also give the value that I need to give just as I was in person? So one thing I talk about is showing up bright, bold, and bodacious. And what I mean by that is, if you guys could see me right now, I have on some bright lipstick, I have on a bright green sweater, and I have some lovely flowers on. So you can be seen, because now you're virtual. And so if you're virtual, you need to be seen. And then you need to be rested and ready and prepared and energized, because you're going to have to give out a whole different level of energy, because you're trying to keep people's attention, just like if they were watching TV is how I see it, right? So you got to keep their attention. And then the other thing is that etiquette. I've been on so many virtual events where people are speaking, and I've seen people host events that they say, well, everybody can keep their mic on. That's not a good idea, maybe, because if people keep their mic on, they're not used to sitting in a conference or a webinar as much as you are at a hotel in a conference room. You're going to sit there and be quiet, but things may happen around you. And then things are, all in between and just very bothersome, distracting. And the other thing is too, knowing what type of platform to set up on. So set up one, for instance, like a Zoom. If you do a regular Zoom, everybody's face is popping up. Everybody can talk if they unmute themselves. Maybe you need to do something like a webinar, depending on the topic. And that way also, so you can showcase yourself, or you can showcase that speaker. So it's a lot of different things, like the way you show up, that are important. But one, you want to be bright, bold, and bodacious. And bold means you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone, because you're not, as speakers, as they say, don't go and stand behind the podium when you're speaking. Well, you can't just sit here and talk and be a monologue, monotone and talking. That's not going to engage people. That's not representing yourself, your brand, or that organization, company, agency, or whomever has you come in. So those are some of the topics, or some of the things that I talk about when we talk about showing up for a virtual event.
I love that. I think one of the things that people love to say all the time is how, when you can get on Zoom, how you can be in your jammies, right? And how at the top, you're in this, and on the bottom, you're in your pajamas. But here's what I want to say about that. I think that's really great sometimes when you are just having like maybe a one-on-one with someone, not a potential client, right? And you both decide upfront that you're going to be casual. I think you can set that up, and maybe it can be that. But here's what I know to be true for me. How I dress and show up really affects the whole call, right? I feel like for me, I don't know about you, but I may be virtual now, but I probably wear more makeup now than I did before, right? And at an earlier time of the day, because now I have to get up in the morning, and before my very first call, I am, in full makeup and hair. And so now I schedule, I change how I do my schedule, and I try to give myself one day a week where I get to, just work, in my business, so I don't have to do that. But the reality is the energy you bring to the call is affected by that. You know, you can see yourself on Zoom. When you're on the stage, it's not like there's a mirror in front of you and you can see, you get that back from the connection with the audience. But when you're on Zoom, you can see yourself. And I don't think I could be all that energetic if I'm looking at myself and I'm thinking to myself, oh man, Patty, you need to put some moisturizer on or whatever, right? You know, I need to show up myself so I can look at myself and I know that I'm showing up at my best to serve. Would you agree?
I would agree. And I love what you just said about looking at yourself, right? Even knowing how to use that platform and knowing that there is a higher resolution, the resolution setting will actually help you look a little better on platforms like Zoom. So getting to know your technology is very important, because we're going to say that that's a part of your support, not your etiquette, but it's going to make you appear better. The other thing is, I found out a few weeks ago, there is a way to hide seeing yourself. I thought that was interesting. And I think that is something that may work for some people, because maybe depending on how they feel, maybe their nerves or what type of presentation they're giving, or perhaps they're just being a participant in something, know about that as well. But I definitely think that matters. Another thing is, just because you're on Zoom doesn't mean you're always going to be sitting down. So great thing. Sometimes when you're a presenter, maybe you're going to sit there that whole time. But maybe you're in a meeting and you are the leader in that meeting, or you are a leader in that meeting, and you don't even realize you have gotten up and you have your pajama pants on. No, you need to have at least, some basic standard nice black slacks or something on, because you're still showing up for a meeting, whether you're leading it or whether you are just being in the meeting. I just always remember that, as well as engaging people in these virtual events. You might need to stand up. I've been in virtual events from Zoom to full-blown conferences. But what if I wanted to do an activity? And we kind of forget, just because we're virtual, we don't have to just sit in front of this camera, right? We can actually move around if possible. And if that works for you, that works for you.
I agree.
So I think it's very important to know that getting dressed is important, making sure you are showing up boldly, and thinking about, you still have to have the same demeanor and great business decor when it comes to your etiquette as if you were in person. Doesn't mean that you can be as slack as some people think you can be. Actually, you need to be more in your P's and Q's, because it's harder to sell yourself, right? It's harder for people to connect with you or to know you. They cannot see all your body language and your body gestures. They can't see that whole full suit all the time, that you're dressed up and are appropriate for that event. I went to an event the other day, and it was, they said, dress up. They said, this is going to be an evening of elegance. They shouldn't have told me that, but it was only two ladies that dressed up. It was myself and another woman. But people couldn't really see that. I could see her shirt and I knew what I had on. I could see her earrings and all of her decor. Her demeanor was great. But when you're virtual, it's even harder to sell yourself. So you want to make sure that your basics are covered. Your background, the setting, the noise, your brightness, and then that energy that you're giving off, especially if you're the presenter, because nobody's going to pay attention to you if you have all these other little people in a box and you're just sitting there and you are very dull, very quiet, no energy. You have to be bold. You have to be bright. You have to be bodacious, and you have to be dressed right. You have to have some color to you too.
And I think a lot of that is, even if they can't see it, it's how you feel, right? It's showing up how you feel. On my desktop, I have like 3 32-inch monitors, right? So I have big, huge span. And when I get on Zoom, I have on 2 of my monitors, the one that I'm not looking at, 2 of my monitors, I actually have, one of them has women and they're just kind of dancing and they're like whatever. And when I look at it, it keeps my energy up, right? It really does. But I think that what is also important is, as a speaker, or when you're having a meeting, any type of thing that you're getting to virtually, one of the things that we pay attention to when we are in person is, who is the demographic? Like, who are we in front of, right? But what I think is that I'm noticing that people don't necessarily do it so much virtual. So the reality is when you're showing up, you may think it's okay to just be this one way, but who are the other people? Because I've seen some people be pretty much over the top. I mean, I went to this one virtual event and this girl was playing music and she had candles lit and she was dancing and all this kind of stuff. And you could pretty much tell some of the people were kind of uncomfortable with that too. So I think that was pretty awesome. And if she was in front of her people, then I think that's great because they would expect that from her, right? But I think it's just as important virtually to think just like if it was in person. It's not like, oh, it's just virtual. No, you have to work harder because it is virtual to create that same environment, like you were saying earlier. So, asking questions about who is the demographic and who's going to be on the call if you're speaking and you're the presenter, or even if you're attending. Like, I want to know as much as I can. So I make sure that I show up and stand out, like you said, and be bold and bodacious. I love that word, bodacious. That is such a good word. So I really love that. So I think that is really true. So let's dive into some content. So thinking about virtual, right? So we talked for a few seconds earlier about various platforms. So I think a lot of times people are thinking about Zoom, right? Now Zoom is just like the end all be all. And while I use Zoom for a lot of things, it is not the only platform that is out there. Not only that, but I think sometimes you need to separate yourself because I have found that when people are offered or invited to a virtual event, meaning somebody actually was doing an event where they were charging for tickets, people were going to go there in person, and now they pivoted to virtual, is not the same thing as 20 people saying, hey, let's just jump on Zoom and you're going to tell us about your business and we're going to talk about how we might be able to collaborate together. Those two things are not the same, and there's a multitude of things in between those two things, right? So I think that maybe understanding that there are different platforms and when and why you may choose to use some of them. So can we talk a little bit about platforms? So what are you seeing there? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think one, you need to have a variety. When we're in real person, if we're an event organizer or a speaker, there are different venues you can go to, right? There are different settings. There is, your smaller conference room, your ballrooms, your grander places and spaces, hotels. But the same should be for virtual because everything isn't meant for everybody in every event. So even with Zoom, a lot of people knowing more about Zoom and the different things that Zoom offers, how to set up those breakout rooms and those sorts of things. Or maybe knowing your audience, like you said earlier, it's important to know your audience. So if I was doing something that's probably for most people that I would assume the audience, or I knew the audience was not very techy or familiar, I would probably use Zoom because that's what most people knew or know. But if you're thinking about people that are willing to explore and willing to invest in a different platform, you're going to think about other platforms that might allow more interactive meeting space and meeting options and networking. And I think you and I, before Patty, may have discussed one of those. And there are several of them, but you have to know what works best for you. So some of the other platforms that are available, of course, are Adobe, GoToMeeting, Uber Conference. There's one other one that I can't put my name on it, but we talked about it a little bit before. It actually is so grand. I really had a great time on it. It breaks you out in so many different sessions that you're able to network. Do you remember, Patty?
Yeah, I think it was Hopin.
It's Hopin. And my brain kept on thinking.
Yes, Hopin, and then there's InEvent too. That's kind of a bigger one, but Hopin, I think, is one that I've been using a lot lately. But there are several, and I think that one of the things you said, you nailed it, right? Like, somebody might not be thinking about it, but a lot of it is really about how tech savvy are you? Is it something you're going to be able to handle alone? Is it something that you can handle with your VA? Do you need to have a team to do that? Is it best to hire somebody for logistics to do that because you're going to be the host and maybe a speaker too? And really, honestly, thinking about who you're serving. Are you going to have sponsors? There's a lot of different things to take into consideration. And not only that, but you have to know that what tech you choose to use actually says something about you as well, right?
Yes, and you also, when you are hosting these events on the different platforms, you need to make sure your participants, your speakers, and your vendors are also trained or knowledgeable before or prior to the event. So when we talk about, we assume everybody knows how to use Zoom, but you want to make sure that they do know how to use Zoom, or you as a participant or speaker or leader know how to use Hopin. And so that means it would put it back on even the event hostess or host to make sure, hey, let me give you a tutorial, because we can't assume. It's not like you're just walking into a hotel conference room and there's the speaker and there's the mic. Even sometimes in real life, we see challenges with that AV stuff. But now there's nobody there. You don't have that AV tech to assist you. So you better get that information in advance. So remembering too, that preparation part is very important, because I've been to some events that have been absolutely wonderful. Patty is so right. What you use does reflect the level of business that you're operating on, right? But if you have a team, you can tell the difference when people don't have teams, because what happens is maybe that speaker is having audio problems. They don't have someone assigned to do just tech, right? Or maybe they didn't have anybody assigned to talk to the speaker for a dry run through on how to use the technology. So I think those are very good points, Patty.
And I think also too, I think it's pretty common when you attend an event. So whether, if you're just an attendee, whether you're a speaker or not, I have never been to an event that the first 5 minutes wasn't the host or the MC or whatever kind of doing housekeeping rules, right? Oh, here's where you can find this. If you're too cold or whatever, here's what we want you to do. If this is happening, here's where the restrooms are. This is what time we're going to go to lunch. So you always show up and then they tell you. Now, when you're doing this virtual and there's different platforms, the same thing can apply, right? To let them know this is what we're going to have. You're going to see some buttons on the left, where we're going to be able to have these different things, but don't worry, we're going to guide you through them. This is what we're going to want you to do. Let people know. I actually went to an event that was done on Hopin where the girl actually did a video of walking everybody through it and sent it to everybody before the event, which I thought was brilliant. Really little, like 2 or 3 minute thing. So that way you showed up, you were like super excited, and you showed up a little bit early so you could practice it a little bit. And I think that worked really well. And it really set her up for success. So I think that really, honestly, there are things that we don't even think about that when you go to events, they do tell us that. But when you think about that from a virtual point of view, it is a little bit different. So now let's talk about marketing, my favorite subject, So let's kind of talk about marketing virtual events differently than regular events. And I think part of that is that when people are doing an in-person event, especially if it's an event where they're expecting, 100 people or more, the time frame to market that event doesn't happen in like 3 weeks, right? It is months where that is set if they do it correctly, right? And they want people to show up, right? Then that happens over months and there's a strategy and a plan of things to do. But I see people who decide that say, oh, Patty, we would love you to come and speak on this thing. And it's like 3 weeks later. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, right? And so you're seeing that happen, which also says a lot about you, right? Let's talk a little bit about that. Like how should, and I don't really like to should all over everybody, right? But really, honestly, what things should people be thinking about, and what maybe some tips or tactics you could share with somebody about if you're going to do a virtual event for it to be successful? What are some of the things that they need to do differently? And maybe a few of the things that are kind of the same as well. But really, honestly, what are the things they need to be taking into consideration now if they want it to be successful?
I think the first thing is figuring out that the same thing that's always the same, who your audience is, because who your audience is going to be is going to determine what platform you're going to use. So who is your audience? And then I'm going to be able to determine what platform I use. So when I'm marketing, that platform actually fits those people, that potential client or that potential attendee that's going to actually attend. Another thing is you don't have the same, you're not passing out flyers. You're not doing this a 6-month plan. I'm also a certified event planner. And from years ago, we would say, you need at least 6 months. And even now I say 3 to 6 months for a real event. But a virtual event, the reason people are having them is because they're pivoting and they need to create an event or get information out or whatever the case may be. So one of the things you might want to think about, how can I get into these virtual streets quicker, get more information out? So it would be really about effective partnership, making sure you have ambassadors, people that are going to refer and also promote and kind of co-sign what you're doing. So that's one. Another thing is to think about, how are you showing up when you're marketing it? Are you actually getting out there? And what does the face of this event look like? Does this event look like it's going to be engaging as a virtual event? Are you going to use some of those words like interactive? And why do I want to come to your virtual event? I talk a lot of times to people about like virtual burnout. We're all inundated right now with virtual events. What sets you apart from anybody else's virtual event? So what are you going to offer that's different? So for instance, with that Hop-In platform, you know that you're going to be able to connect with other people one-on-one. You would be able to say you are going to be able to engage with people one-on-one. We're going to have lively activities or interactive activities. And we may also have prizes or whatever that works and makes it more appealing to people. And are you going to give people a way to connect with each other? The main thing is, how do people still connect with each other at the event or after the event, or get that information? Or what's that extra offer? If you come to the virtual event, you'll also get this package. Because let's think about it. If we were at a staged event, and many of us, the ones that are speakers, we know that we're going to give some information, and then we're going to pitch a sale or give some additional information where you can work with us at another level. But you have to buy into that program. Maybe at your virtual event, some of that is included, or you have a special bonus included. So marketing a virtual event means, again, you're going to have to show up bolder and more bodacious. You're going to have to offer more. You're going to have more energy. You're going to have more partners. You're going to need collaborators. You're going to need ambassadors. So you have to be ready, because the virtual world is totally different. Now, the other thing is remembering to yourself that now you have less limits, though, because now you're virtual. So since you're virtual, you may have a bigger audience. You have more people that potentially could be a part of your event. So think about that as well. Like, how are you able to touch people? And are you offering this as an event for anybody to attend that, maybe is in business anywhere from here to anywhere in the world? Or is it still going to be regional? So there are a lot of questions that need to be answered in marketing too. But the main thing is making sure you're getting collaborators, making sure you're showing up, very bright and bold, and making sure that you understand what platform you're going to use and what are the special offers that you're going to offer me, the consumer, or them, the consumer, to come to your virtual event. What makes your virtual event wonderful?
And I think the other thing about that as well is also you do have more distractions when you're virtual. Like, I know that one of the things that I think has been interesting is that I've been invited to speak and attend and be a part of a multitude of virtual events that are like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now, I have to tell you, when I go to an event and I'm gone Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I'm away from my family. I go there, I show up, as soon as I walk in, I flip the switch and I am on every minute. Like, I know I can see somebody. I mean, I have found clients that ended up working with me from a conversation in the bathroom that started with, oh, those are cute shoes, right? In a multitude of ways. However, when you want me to sit my butt in front of my computer for 3 days, and 2 of those days are Saturday and Sunday, and my family is behind me and they're all having lunch and I can hear the tea, and they're, even if I'm in the office, right? But I mean, I know my family's out there. It is so much harder for me to be engaged, right? And to just sit there. It is like so much harder. And so I find that for me, one of the pivotal things that I have noticed that has been more successful in the events I've done is to realize that, because a lot of times the reason why people go to events over the weekend is because they want to be in San Diego or by the beach, or, it's a location that they want to go to that they can add a few extra days on. Those are the reasons why people do those then. But when you're talking about having them sit in their seat for days, I kind of feel like taking into consideration the hours. I'm sure you remember the days of going to an event and they say, oh yeah, it's going to be on the beach, it's going to this and that, and then they keep you in the room till like 10 o'clock at night and you never ever see that beach, right? But with that said, I always plan time for everybody in that when I do my events. But with that said, virtually, I feel for me that what has worked, and I'd love to hear from your point of view and what you're seeing out there, but I'm finding that people are liking more virtual events to be during the week and not on the weekend, right? To have business events during business time, right? Because they don't want to do it on the weekend when their family's right there outside the door, right? I'm finding that has been really important. Are you seeing that as well?
I think I'm seeing that, but I see that a lot of people still do weekends, but they realize that they can't keep attention as long. So they might do a Friday and a Saturday, but Friday might be what you said, all day, all day. But Saturday might be 9 to 12, because guess what? People still have their day that works for them. And I also think, I love the way you said, Patty, that people went to events because of the experience of it and because they wanted to experience something where, maybe they were out of town, it's different. You also, on the side of the participant, have to set the tone yourself. So what I find myself doing a lot of times is I have stuff behind me, but I'll give you. But a lot of times I will set up my table or my desk as if I were at an event. So I'm going to have my bottled water. I'm going to have some little bubbles to tear with or something to color. So also on the other end, making sure that you are engaging on your own, set it up just like an event. And if you're an event planner, I've seen some really cool things. I have someone I just did an event with, a workshop, a series, and she sent us a box of stuff just like we were at that event. So if you're really wanting to engage your participants, send them those t-shirts, right? Send them those items just like they were at an event so they can still get the experience of it as well. So I definitely agree with you, because I've had to be at some events, and luckily I went to 2 or 3 of them on the weekend, and I thought they were going to be so drear. But one of them was absolutely phenomenal. Other ones, I was like, yeah, they could have kept this till, maybe a Wednesday instead of my Friday and my Saturday. But if it's interactive, maybe it's a little better.
Yeah, I think that is really true. I was at an event, a virtual event, a month or so ago, and they had us getting out of our chairs doing things. It was really funny. And one of the things they did is they played some music in the background, and they said you had 30 seconds to get up and come back. And this was in breakout rooms. We were going to be in breakout rooms. So there was like 5 of us. And what they wanted us to do was to share one of our greatest accomplishments, something that represented that. So people got up and they came back and they'd show some plaque they had on the wall or pictures of their kids, whatever the case may be, maybe some certificate of an award they got or whatever. But you did get out of your chair for a second, to go show that and stuff. And that was actually kind of interesting and fun, and to do that. So I think that there are different things that you can do to still make it be, like a scavenger hunt. There's a lot of different things that you can do. I love the swag boxes, though. I have to tell you, I do think those are pretty good. We received one from an event, and it had a water bottle in it that said progress, not perfection. And I loved it. And I carry it with me everywhere I go now and stuff, because I really, really liked it. And so that was pretty awesome. And I think about them every single time. So I think there's a lot of different things that you can do. So I think you just have to think differently. Think about who your audience is. Is your audience someone who really would prefer it to be during the week? And I think people do need to think about it. I know there's a lot of events now that are doing virtual things that I get invited to all the time that are at nighttime. Personally, for me, it's very, very rare for me to attend a nighttime event. You better have something really good to get me to get on at 7 or 8 o'clock at night after my day, right? But, you have to determine who is your audience for that. So maybe there is a subset of people that is perfect for them. So I love the way you're saying it, is really paying attention, asking those questions. If you don't know, hire someone, right? But really being really clear. So there's just as much work differently in virtual events than there are in in-person events, from whichever side of the screen you are, right? So whether you're the host, whether you're just an attendee, I think it is really important. Now, here's what everybody really wants to hear, Teresa. This is why they're all here, because they all want to hear us talk about how do you monetize virtual events, right? That is the thing. So now let's talk about the money, right? So let's talk about that. So what kind of tips can you share that they can be thinking about? How can they monetize virtual events, whether it is a webinar or a master class or a business event, like all the different kind there are? What are some strategies that you're seeing people use now to monetize their events?
One, because of the times that we're in, making sure that you have a topic or you have a speaking topic or activity that is going to be something that, of course, people want to pay or buy. So for instance, one of my topics is mental health, right? So of course, right now, mental health is a big thing. So I'm finding that being one of my big box sellers. So what do you offer? As usual, what do you offer that right now in our times people are really wanting and willing to pay for? Also, you remind people that are event organizers, CEOs, executive directors, that just because it's a virtual event doesn't mean that you're not showing up with the same content and value, because you are. And so you're going to have to be able to sell and show that value. So making sure your visuals are very clear, making sure your content is very clear, letting them know why they want to have this event, why it needs to be virtual, right? Why that, how it can still be impactful and effective. But then on your side, you have to decide, do you charge less for virtual events than you did in person? Or is it the same? And if it is the same, why? I found for myself and many speakers in particular that this time has been a time that they've done very well, that I've done very well. Because some people, they're thinking, well, it's a virtual event. I'm going to call and see if she can speak. Oh, no, what's your budget? You're still asking those same questions. Like, what's your budget? This is what I have to offer. But the way that you can really monetize is doing it just like you did when you did those in-person events. It's just a different venue. So you ask the questions. What's your budget? Are you providing the platform? Do I provide the platform? How many people will be there? And the way you monetize it again is you're in business, if you're a business owner, to make money. So think about sitting down and setting up a plan for yourself on how you're going to pitch your virtual events, right? How are you going to pitch them? And so what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to pitch my virtual events, for instance, such as, why would you want to buy the virtual event? Because I will be able to train this many people or talk to this many people, and they'll have this knowledge when they leave. So I think the thing here is virtual is now a new norm for us, right? So just put it in the setting of it being a business. Another way you can monetize it is maybe they don't want to pay you, right? They don't want to pay you to speak, but you have products, right? So I had one organization, they had a small fee that they could pay me, but then I told them, hey, I have some ebooks and books. Can you buy one for each attendee? I had no problem with that because, of course, I can include the shipping. I can get those books out. I'm able to reach more people. I'm getting paid a fee for speaking. And now y'all have my products. And they were willing to do that. So that's another way. Another way is, how can you make money? And maybe you don't even host them. Maybe it's not even your event. I had an organization, they saw something I was doing and they reached out to me, and I was actually doing it for my group of women. And they said, we would love to know how you're doing that. I would love to know for my employees. And I said, sure. And she called and we talked and I said, oh, okay, I'll do it for your company. And this is a Fortune 500 company that found me on Eventbrite. So you don't know who's watching you. And all I was doing is having a karaoke party for my mom's group. They wanted to do the same thing for their Fortune 500 employees. Guess what? I said, I love how you said it, Patty. I said, I wear a lot of hats. You wear a lot of shoes, right? So I got the tap dancing and I started thinking, how can I monetize this? So I said, oh, I'll help you. I'll help you find this. I'll set up this part. And I didn't do anything. All I did is tell her how to get the karaoke party started. I had the DJ. I made my money doing that. And I just sat there and listened. There's so many ways. Or you can partner with other speakers. I've had the opportunity this year to bring on so many other speakers to come speak at events where I'm getting paid to do something. But, I know Patty's the same kind of person. Sometimes you're not the speaker for that. They called you here for something else, but you know some other speakers. So now I'm able to get paid for these other speakers to speak as well as myself and pay them. So there's so many ways. You have to be really creative in these virtual settings. So making sure that you're figuring out ways that you can monetize. What are your skills, gifts, and talents that you can use right now in this virtual setting? If you're very creative, maybe what stands out at your events is that you have backdrops, better backgrounds, that you have more technology experience, and also letting people know what your experience is. And always, always, always leverage those same testimonials you had before, but where are your virtual testimonials and stuff? So what I'm saying is, if you've been doing virtual events, I just did this a few weeks ago, get those guest hosts, everybody, whoever you can, to put those testimonials there talking about you, because if you have more word on what great events, service, product, speaking you offer, they're going to be more inclined to want to go ahead and give you their money. So there's so many ways to do it, but creativity, still being bold, bright, and bodacious, and then just thinking about what can you use now in this virtual setting that can make you money. And there are many things that are allowing you to do that right now.
I also think that one of the things that we have the ability to do now, where when you were asked to speak and you were traveling, and maybe they weren't paying you a fee, but they were allowing you to sell, and you were going to, be paying the cost of this hotel and your food and stuff yourself, but you were going to be able to sell, which works really well. I mean, it's a business model that has been around for a long time. However, in this ability to virtually speak now, where you don't have those costs, a lot of times I've been hearing from other people, my clients are like, oh, should I be speaking for free? Well, I don't know, maybe. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. The questions really are you in front of the right people? And what do you get to offer? So like you were saying, if you were in a room and they were going to have 100 people, but now you're going to be speaking virtually and they tell you that you're going to be in front of 1,000 people, maybe because they're only going to get to see you for that 40 minutes or 30 minutes, and you're not going to have that time to, like we say, network and visit with them and do all that. So they don't have as much time to know, like, trust us, to build that rapport. So you're going to have to do a little bit more follow-up, but the cost to entry can be less. So instead of, trying to, when you've spent 2 or 3 days with someone and you're talking to them about a $1,000 program, if you were in front of 1,000 people, could you talk to them about a program that's only $197? Right? So I think that there's a lot of different ways now that we can be thinking about it and doing it that maybe we didn't think about before. Like, thinking about selling something for $97 or $197 when I just got done paying for a hotel and I'm already, $600 or $700 in and I haven't even got on the stage yet. That might not be something I might consider. It all depends. Who is in the audience is always going to be what matters, whether it is virtual or in person, as far as I'm concerned. And knowing that information, asking the right questions about that is really what is going to be important. So I have to tell you, Teresa, you have literally talked to us about creating and marketing and monetizing events and giving everybody some few things to think about and questions that they should ask. So I have to say, I really appreciate you really sharing with us. So how can everybody connect with you? So I know they're going to want to know more. I know they're going to want to continue the conversation because this is some great stuff. How can they connect with you?
Thanks again, Patty. You can connect with me best at twjme.com. That's T as in Tom, W as in water, J as in Johnson, M as in man, and E as in Edward.com. That stands for Teresa Wright Johnson Multiple Enterprises, because just like these events, I'm an enterprise and you are too.
So that's how they would connect with you. Thank you so much. And we will definitely have that link in the show notes below. So no problem there. So now we're at the time in the show where I like to call this our open mic, my social karaoke, so to speak. You have already shared so much with us, but what would you say, Teresa, is your number one marketing media money strategy?
Number one thing would always be get out of your comfort zone and build relationships and connections you usually would not in these virtual streets. Connect with at least 3 people daily, whether that be online, via social media, or on the phone, and if possible, in person.
That's a great strategy. I love it. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here with me today. I appreciate you sharing your brilliance so generously. And to the audience, Thank you for joining us on the Marketing, Media, Money podcast. And if you enjoyed today's episode, and I'm sure you did, please like, subscribe, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. And make sure you join us in the Marketing, Media, and Money Facebook group. And also, if you'd like to know a little bit more about your marketing and your media and how you can make money, take our free assessment at www.m3, that stands for Marketing, Media, and Money. So www.m3bizquiz.com. And until we see you again, remember, have a phenomenal day. And if it's not phenomenal, you have the power to change it. Thank you again, Teresa. I appreciate you being here with me so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. To shorten your learning curve even more, make sure to grab your free copy of the Marketing, Media, and Money magazine at www.marketingmediamoney.com. I promise your business will thank you.